I figured before I start with the stories I wanted to talk about, I thought I would just give a quick shout out. That's the wrong word for it. But Daniel Dennett died today. He was 82 years old. He was one of the more famous atheists about 15, 20 years ago when all those books were coming out about the new atheism. He didn't come up with that nickname, it was bestowed upon him. But him alongside Hitchens and Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris were kind of in that mix. I would say two things about Daniel Dennett because I haven't followed him for the past few years too much. But if you wanted to read anything by him, the book I would recommend more than any other one would be Breaking the Spell. And that came out around that time. All those other atheist books were coming out. But the reason I like that one, and I did read that one, and I was already an atheist, it didn't change my mind about anything. But I thought if you're looking for a book to convince religious people, not why they should become an atheist so much, but how they should be thinking about questions regarding religion and the thought process involved in that, I found it to be a relatively inoffensive but very useful book in terms of just teaching you how to think logically, think rationally. I liked it. It's the book I've recommended to most people when they're wondering, what should they read if they're curious about religion. And I recommend that a lot more than I recommended The God Delusion or God is Not Great. I just think it's more accessible to people who may not be atheists already. So that's the first thing. The other thing I would recommend that you look up about Dennett if you don't know this already, because I think the most impactful work he did was not the books. He's written like 24 books. It was a project he did, like a research project he did with someone named Linda Lascola, where they spoke to a couple dozen people who stopped believing in God, or at least had very serious doubts about God, but they were pastors. And so they were like, they have a job, their livelihood is mixed in with their religion. And so, what happens if you are a practicing minister, a priest, and you have religious doubts? Who do you talk to about that? You can't tell anyone at work because work is religion. If you tell someone in your life, it's like, I don't believe in God anymore. Yeah, that's nice. Bring home a paycheck. Like you got a job to do. So it's not necessarily something you could tell your partner or your family. And yet they wanted to talk about it somehow. So through like internal networks, it turns out there were a handful of priests who kind of knew each other and they could connect with each other. And they formed what became the Clergy Project, which is kind of like an anonymous online forum where you are vetted. They don't let anyone in the mix. But if you are working at a church or any sort of religious ministry, but you don't believe, but you want to talk about this stuff, and maybe you're looking for a way out, the Clergy Project has been just a one-stop shop for that. And Daniel Dennett was like the big name that helped get those people into the fold. He and Linda Lascola talked to those priests. They put out a paper. That paper led to the Clergy Project, which led to more people coming out. I don't know what the number's at now. I don't know how many people are in the forum as we speak. But in terms of an impactful project that still has so much meaning for so many people, that would not have happened without Daniel Dennett. And by the way, the Clergy Project and the interviews that took place with leaders, that became like a Broadway play later on. It became like, I think, a documentary as well. So that's what I'm going to miss about Dennett more than anything else. So kudos to him for everything he accomplished. I hope he feels like he led a fulfilled, complete life. He was 82. Sorry to see that news today.